morning, casuals. It is Tuesday, May 28th, coming off an extra long weekend of wrestling. Friday, we had some audio issues, weren't able to post a Champ of the Chick. Monday was a holiday, so it's been a little bit of time since I got to talk to you guys. Your boy got to relax over the 3-day weekend, but there's a lot to talk about today, so we'll try to breeze through it as fast as possible. If you're new here, I am the Notorious Nerdy D, the voice of the casual wrestling fans, and this is the Casual Wrestling Daily Show Tuesday edition. Let's not waste any time. Let's start off talking about the biggest news. Like I said, lots to talk about today, but where do you even start? I think the most important place to start is our boy MJF made a triumphant return to AEW this weekend, rocking some very suspect new ink. Look, Maxwell, we get it. You're betting on yourself, and I got no problem with that. Absolutely. I'm all for it. You want to take the bet. You want to try to take AEW to the promised land. More power to you. You get them to the finish line. You're the hero. But did you need to ride it on your leg so you don't forget? I mean, did you find the cheapest tattoo artist in Long Island? Did you go to prison? What? Someone explained to me this tattoo. Like, somebody explain his tattoo artist. They do know poker chips are round, correct? Because that tattoo was janky as fuck. That was a prison tat, Max. And you haven't been to prison. Did Daddy Tony tell you that you couldn't have the new check until you got the tattoo, that the check wouldn't clear until the ink was dry? I was hoping MJF showed up in WWE. Sure, I was one of those guys. I've said it numerous times. I think that ultimately one day he does end up in WWE. But at this point in time, right now, this is what's best for pro wrestling. Like, you can bet your ass that MJF and AEW is what is best for the health of the entire pro wrestling industry. AEW is in desperate need right now of a commercial wrestling star. They have to have somebody on the roster who can sell the tickets, who can move the needle. But here it is, guys. Here it is, IWC. It is put up or shut up time for AEW right now. Let me say it again. It is put up or shut up time for AEW right now. We get to see in real time if MJF is the needle mover that you guys have been saying he is all along. And make no mistake, I'm an MJF guy. Think he can do it. But we're going to get real-time results. Make no mistake, Double or Nothing was just another AEW pay-per-view. You guys do that pretty good. You do pay-per-views pretty well. What we're going to have to see is the week-to-week show. We're going to have to see the dynamites, the collisions, the rampages. We're going to have to see those numbers raise before we're willing to call this a success. This might be the wake-up call for the IWC. There's nothing to hide behind at this point. MJF is back. Mercedes Moné is a champion. She's popping bottles in the club. Like, she just dropped 50 in a Game 7 in the NBA Finals. Like, AEW is celebrating this like this was a major victory, but here's the problem. You got to show up on a weekly basis. You can't just do it in the big games. So what happens in a couple of weeks when that needle doesn't move? What happens in a couple of weeks when MJF isn't pushing the ratings forward and Mercedes Moné becomes stale as a champion? Then what, IWC? What do you start saying then? What's the next talking point for you guys? You know, this reminds me of a sophomore quarterback. MJF reminds me of like a sophomore quarterback in college who had a good year, who decides, I'm going to go back and prove my worth. I'm going to go back to AEW, and I'm going to prove that I can move the needle. And there's only one of two ways that can go. He can be the hero, and he can move the needle, and we will set MJF into another echelon of pro wrestling, or more likely, your value just begins to plummet. Because if that needle doesn't move and you bet on yourself in a time where WWE is the cool product, it's trouble, man. It's trouble. That tattoo, man, that tattoo's like getting a girl's name tattooed on your chest when the relationship's still kind of rocky. It's a Hail Mary. I don't know. I get it. Bet on yourself, MJF. I don't know if a tattoo is needed to solidify that relationship. And I'm not going to go as far. I've seen a lot of the WWE fans who are salty about this. I'm not salty. Once again, best thing that could happen for the health of pro wrestling is that there is a little bit of balance between the two companies. I see a lot of WWE fans trying to make the argument that MJF is a poor man's Miz. We're not doing that. We're not going to do that shit out here. MJF's a beast. MJF's an entertainer. MJF is a top guy. He's young. He has everything that you need. He can wrestle. He can talk. He does it all. So I'm not going to stand for the MJF slander. But I am going to say that when you make your triumphant return, your big expected return at Double or Nothing, and you go out on the ring and you make a Vince McMahon reference, that doesn't bode well. You're just fueling the fire for the WWE audience, the ones who want this to fail. You're going out there and you just, once again, you reference the other company. And I'm not sure, I don't know what Max does in his free time, but if he hasn't been watching, the other company right now is the cool company. And the other company right now has gotten rid of Vince McMahon, and Triple H has taken over, and he's starting to right the ship over there. So here's the part that I don't think the IWC really wants to talk about. And that is, I don't think there was a bidding war. I don't think there was ever actually talks between WWE and MJF that were taken seriously, because I don't think that WWE ever valued MJF at the level that Tony Khan values him. Not to say that MJF's not worth it. I just think WWE right now is in a position with the roster that they have to be extremely picky. And while they look at MJF and they go, future star down the road, they also know he can continue to cook over in AEW, and we'll pick him up in 3 or 4 years. We don't need him right now. Right now, the top of our roster is so crowded that why would we bring him in? Where does he fit in? He's not an NXT guy. He's not a guy who's going to be happy in the mid-card part of the roster. So I think Triple H goes, we're not going to place the bid. I don't think that this bidding war that MJF tried to drum up, I don't think it ever happened. I think that Tony Khan sat down with MJF, handed him a blank check and said, write the number in that you want, and let's keep this thing moving. There's a strong possibility right now that MJF just, he overvalues himself as far as what he thought he could do in WWE. WWE is in the position to be picky right now. The offer, honestly, if Triple H did send something over to MJF, the offer probably looked like a small bag of money, nowhere near what Tony Khan was going to give him. And Triple H probably said, look, you can begin to get into the WWE machine, and there will be a main event of WrestleMania somewhere in the future for you. But I'm not promising this year. I'm not promising next year. You're going to have to earn this. And so then that calls into the question that we've talked about with guys like Will Ospreay. Do they want this grind? Do they want to come in, compete, or do they like where they are? Do they like the cushy position of being able to be a part of AEW, and Tony Khan just kind of assures you what your position is? So is MJF a needle mover? We're going to find out real quick. Is Mercedes Moné a needle mover? The analytics are going to tell us the story very quickly. There's going to be a bump coming out of Double or Nothing, but once that dust kind of settles, 2 or 3 weeks from now, and everything goes back to normal, where do those ratings sit? Are you back over 1 million? Or do you continue to decline and you look around and you go, it doesn't matter what we do, we can't fix what's going on? The IWC boy, Tony Khan, is in the news. You got to watch what you say on TV. Tony Khan, during the NFL draft, went on TV and fired some shots at Vince McMahon and the WWE about Harvey Weinstein and things like that. Now, one of his Jaguar players is under investigation for an alleged sexual assault while on an overseas flight to London on a team plane. Look, if I have any advice for Tony Khan, just maybe don't accuse an entire company of the actions of one idiot. Because this is under you and your dad's watch. This is y'all's football team, and this happened. So now, do we blame you? Do we lump you into this entire story? Or do we realize that there's just bad people doing bad things and it's not a reflection on the entire company? That companies have to function in kind of a slimy way, right? They can't just come out and tank the company because they found out one guy who's part of the company is a dipshit. You can't do it. Like, maybe Tony Khan just needs to understand that tribalism is real. It happens. I play into it. But we don't need to make it real in the sense that we use kind of real life sexual assaults and things like that to try to boost the ratings. Let's just not do that. Let's be careful what we say when we have a live microphone in front of us and who we point the finger at, you know? The IWC foaming at the mouth again here about Becky Lynch. Her latest tweet was "to be continued" with a picture of her walking away from WWE. I think this could have been the topic of the show today, but I think it's more news noteworthy. We'll talk about it here. But yeah, Becky looked sentimental in that last match. She looked like she was crying, looked like there was a little sense of relief. I know she tweeted that out after the match. I know that Sean Ross Dipstick is already reporting that there's a bidding war between WWE and AEW. I don't have inside information. I don't have any sources. I don't have anybody I talk to. I just use, pure common sense and pure logic. And the reality is we know that Becky Lynch was planning to take a break after WrestleMania. We all knew that. And then Rhea Ripley got hurt, and Triple H called Becky Lynch and said, "Hey, we're going to need you to come back and help us transition away from Rhea Ripley into whatever's next." And Becky, being the professional she is, being the WWE, what's the word I want here? Just WWE lifer that she is, she came in and did the job, and she transitioned Liv Morgan into the better situation. She's not signing with AEW, guys. There's no bidding war going on. Could she use the number to boost whatever she gets from WWE? Sure. But WWE will back up the truck for Becky Lynch. There are a list of 5 or 6 superstars in WWE that they just will not let walk. They will back up the truck. They will give them whatever they want. More likely, what this tweet meant was that Becky's taking time off from professional wrestling, and it may be an extended break, right? It is time for Seth Rollins, Becky Lynch, and Rue to be a family, to have family time, to hang out together, to get off the road, to get out of the grind of professional wrestling. However much time they need, that's well-deserved. Is it 6 months? Is it a year? Whatever it is, we will be here waiting when Becky comes back, and it will not be in AEW. This is more likely the reality that she's taking a break from wrestling, and the to be continued means she will be back at some point. She just doesn't know when. But the reality is, look, there is a reason WWE didn't back the truck up for Mercedes Moné. There's a reason they didn't back the truck up for MJF. The reason is they're going to back the truck up for the ones who've been there all along. The Becky Lynches, the Seth Rollins. Becky's not going to be all elite. I'm sorry to burst people's bubble. Today's episode of the Casual Wrestling Show is brought to you by Mean Green Sports Banners, the #1 green screen poster company in the country. Transform your child's high-quality photo into an amazing digital or physical sports poster, whether it's for your budding baseball star or your soccer sensation. Mean Green Sports Banners has you covered. And for our listeners, you can get an incredible 50% off a digital poster using the code CASUAL at checkout. Don't miss out on making your young athlete a superstar. Visit meangreenphotos.com today. Let's get to the topic of the show. It's always interesting to unpack 3 hours of Monday Night Raw. What's worth talking about? What can we just kind of mention in passing? What doesn't even need to be mentioned? And I think I narrowed it down this week to 3 things that I really wanted to talk about coming out of Monday Night Raw. And it's probably not the things that you expect me to talk about. We can talk about Liv Morgan for a little bit, but really it's the things that you don't see on TV that I think we have to discuss the following day, starting with the IWC. Because the IWC's done it again. If you opened up my inbox, if you had to wake up to what I see in the morning on TikTok and in my email and on YouTube, you'd just laugh. So many messages about Liv Morgan, so many messages telling me how wrong I am about Liv Morgan now that she's champion and how successful she's going to be. And the question I asked back to the IWC is, wrong about what? Like, someone clipped the part where I said she was never going to be a world champion again. That doesn't exist. You know what does exist is the part where I said she's not ready for this spotlight. She's not ready for the attention. Here's the problem, children. And I refer to the IWC as my children now because I have to school them on a daily basis. But here's the problem, children. That shiny world title that Liv Morgan is carrying around right now is the equivalent to a pro wrestling microscope. That shiny title that Liv Morgan is carrying around is a wrestling magnifying glass. And every word of every promo is about to be scrutinized and combed over. Liv is not going to get an exemption from this because you guys love her. In fact, based on her original title run 2 years ago, I think that she has twice as much to prove. And here's the thing. Becky Lynch handed her the title in a pretty little gift wrap box. Becky delayed her vacation so that she could transition into Liv Morgan into a favorable situation with the title. But Becky's gone now. And so now we get to see, how does Liv Morgan fare when she's on her own, when she has to do the heavy lifting? There's nobody here to support her. And from Triple H's booking perspective, I get it. This makes sense. I can explain to you guys 100 ways over how this is no lose booking. This is no lose booking, right? If Liv shits the bed and it all goes to hell, you break glass in case of emergency, Rhea Ripley wins the title back, and all is well. So this is the perfect time for Triple H to take a chance on someone like Liv. But it's interesting to see, are they going straight into the Rhea Ripley stuff after this kiss happened on Monday Night Raw, or does Liv Morgan have to carry the show, I'm guessing, for the next 2 months? Who's available for Clash of the Casual? Like, if I had to guess right now, I think Lyra Valkyrie makes the most sense. I've seen a lot of people try and say Lyra Valkyrie versus Liv Morgan at the Germany show. I don't think that's happening. If I had to guess right now, Lyra Valkyrie makes sense. She's a good size fit for Liv. She has a connection to the fans. She has a connection to Becky. She's one of the top baby faces right now. Triple H has done a good job of kind of selling us on that. And then Liv can cheat. Liv can cheat to win, so it doesn't really hurt Lyra. Lyra's Irish, so she's a neighbor to the show. Show's in Scotland. She's from Ireland, right next door. She's going to get the big crowd reactions. So it comes in with kind of a built-in buffer for Liv Morgan, where she's going to, no matter what, she's going to get a heel reaction in Scotland. And so then we gotta kind of think about it. Rhea will be ready for SummerSlam. I think that's what we're all guessing at this point. I think that's long enough based on seeing like social media posts and things like that. It looks like Rhea's ramping back up, that she's probably, I'd say SummerSlam's a good place to reintroduce her. So you could do Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley SummerSlam. But man, like that leaves, I think, 2 premium live events where Liv Morgan is going to have to do some heavy lifting. Now, if Liv performs in Scotland, there's reason to believe, with the kind of 5-match format that Triple H is using, that she wouldn't have to perform at Money in the Bank. She could take that night off. And that means she'd probably have 1 or 2 title defenses on Monday Night Raw. It makes sense. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think it's interesting. The things we don't see with Liv Morgan. The microscope is on. The magnifying glass is in hand. And we are going to break down on a weekly basis her slips and falls. And I hope she's successful. We talk about Gunther. Gunther still won't put that damn crown on. I like what Gunther did last night. I really do. I like what Gunther did. I know that the last couple of weeks I questioned Gunther. He's just not my cup of tea. He's just, when I go down the list of my favorite professional wrestlers, Gunther's not on that list. I can 100% understand why people like Gunther. It's just not for me. And so I think I tend to find myself get a little bit negative when other people get so excited for something, and ultimately I'm kind of like, not for me. The hype doesn't get me excited. So I think moving forward, Gunther's kind of storyline is going to be interesting, right? There's two major possibilities heading into SummerSlam. Number one, Drew McIntyre beats Damian Priest. We're done with Damian, and we get Gunther versus Drew at SummerSlam. Huge match. Would be fun to watch. I don't think it's happening. More likely, I think that CM Punk is going to cost Drew McIntyre the match in Glasgow, and we're going to get Damian Priest versus Gunther at SummerSlam, and we're going to get CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre at SummerSlam. So then you start looking at SummerSlam, and the way that card is shaping up, we'll be coming off of Money in the Bank. We'll have two new Money in the Bank winners. We'll have more than likely Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley. We'll have CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre. We'll have Damian Priest versus Gunther. We'll have Cody Rhodes versus somebody. Logan Paul versus LA Knight seems like that's the time to do it. And we'll get more QR codes. I'm sure we'll get more QR codes. But that's shaping up to be a big mid-season event the way SummerSlam's supposed to be. Now, how many matches do we get that night? Is that a 7-match night? Is that a 5-match night? It'll be interesting to see how Triple H books SummerSlam, especially knowing that in the next couple of years, we're going to transition into a 2-night SummerSlam. How does he play that this year? I think I cracked the QR codes. I actually do. Without ever watching one, I think I've cracked them. I think we're safe to say that I think Jey Uso is going to be the first victim of the Wyatt Six. Where I got that from, just deducting common sense, him not being on the show last night, the fact that he's calling his, entrance with yeet flies. It just makes sense. That would be who Bo Dallas chose first to go after. I'm not going to beat a dead horse with that one. The last thing I wanted to talk about today was Braun Breaker. Holy shit, Braun Breaker. Triple H has booked Braun Breaker into position to be a major star. Now, what he does going forward will be, we'll have to wait and see. But this guy is the definition of having it. Right now, the way Triple H is booking him, textbook tweener booking. Half of the crowd is booing Braun Breaker when he goes on these rampages, and the other half is barking like maniacs. And that's what you want. That is the absolute reaction you want for a guy like Braun Breaker, who right now is just sitting on the fence of, we're holding him until we figure out exactly where we're going to let him burst through the scene. And I know what I'm about to say is very reductive. It's a very reductive way to think, but sometimes this is the way my mind works. Everyone keeps telling me that Dragunov is this guy. And what you guys say about Dragunov is everything that I see in Braun Breaker. And I know it doesn't have to be one or the other, but it's just the way my mind works. When you guys keep telling me I need to watch Dragunov, and I keep going, yeah, but what about Braun Breaker? What about Braun Breaker? Like, that's the major star. I see the major star when I see Braun Breaker. I don't see necessarily the major star when I see Ilya Dragunov. Now, side note, I will tell you something weird, but this is just a vibe I got watching Monday Night Raw. Something about Ilya Dragunov gives me CM Punk vibes. Don't know what it is. Something in his mannerisms, something in the looks he makes, the way he talks on the microphone. And I'm a big CM Punk guy, but I wasn't always. It took me a while to warm up to CM Punk. So maybe I'll lay off of Ilya for a couple weeks because maybe it's a slow burn. Maybe it's a slow cook. Maybe I'll come around when I start to actually see what the whole Ilya Dragunov experience is. But right now, I am 100% aboard the Braun Breaker train. Ultimately, though, solid Monday Night Raw. There's so many stories going on. One thing Triple H is doing so well is these intertwining stories with things happening behind the scenes, and we're getting cuts. We're getting cut scenes out in the park at a food truck. It just feels like old wrestling again to me. Triple H is in the groove right now. You got, like, not going to talk about it, but Gable is going to be a phenomenal heel when he finally makes the full turn on Alpha Academy. Karrion Kross recruiting Xavier Woods has somehow piqued my interest. I'm interested in where that goes. You got Liv and Dom, Damian and Drew with CM Punk sprinkled in. Monday Night Raw's good right now. I'm not going to complain, Mike. Your show looks good. Monday Night Raw looks good. Let's take a shot at the IWC, and then let's get out of here. The IWC aren't ready for this. They're not ready to have this conversation that we're about to have, but it's time, children. It's time that we have this conversation. Logan Paul. We got to talk about Logan Paul. I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this with a straight face, and then the hate will come. Logan Paul is a top 3 all-around professional wrestler in the entire world. I'm going to say it again. Logan Paul, all around, is a top 3 professional wrestler in the entire world. And no bullshit, I can make an argument for him being the best professional wrestler in the entire world. Now listen to me. Let me explain before you guys go absolutely apeshit. This isn't just WWE I'm talking about. I'm talking about the entire world. When you encompass the 4 major elements that make a wrestling star over with the crowd on a global basis, there is looks, there is charisma, there is in-ring ability, and there's it factor. And he's on a very, very short list on all of those things. The IWC doesn't want to hear it, but Logan Paul's better than your favorite AEW superstar. When you break down these 4 major categories, there are very few people, and I mean very few people, who go into the conversation of best all-around professional wrestler. He has more size and a better look than Bryan Danielson. Sorry, AEW. He has a better physique and a better look than Will Ospreay. Sorry, AEW. Logan has the ability to hit as many big, viral moments in a match as any other wrestler in professional wrestling. And I'm not going to lie. Logan Paul at King of the Ring left a more memorable impact on me than Cody Rhodes did. That's just truth. That's just fact. He's younger. He's more athletic than Cody Rhodes. He's more deliberate in how he approaches, talking to the crowd on a microphone and the way his showmanship towards the crowd. So then where do you go? Who is the best in the world right now? If we're really breaking it down, who is the best all around? I'm not just talking about the guy who does the best flips and the best jumps off the ropes. I'm talking about taking the 4 major categories of professional wrestling, putting them together. Who's the best? Is it Roman Reigns? Okay. Now, I won't fight you on Roman Reigns. I think Roman Reigns has a complete package. Is it MJF? Look, people don't like when I say it, but MJF has the full package. He can talk. He has a look. He has the it factor. And he can wrestle. It may not be the style of wrestling you like, but he can wrestle. Seth Rollins has to be in that conversation as well. But when you include every facet of pro wrestling, every facet, those 4 categories, the list keeps getting shorter and shorter. And then when you factor in something like age, it really comes down to, I think, Logan Paul and MJF on the top of that list. And I understand this is a difficult pill for the IWC to swallow because he's only 8 matches in. And the IWC thinks you need a moveset that consists of 20 different moves. And you got to be able to flip and you got to be able to do. And Logan does some of the flippy stuff y'all like. Logan has a little bit of everything. But he doesn't have, you don't have to have that deep moveset and the 10 years in indie gyms to be considered a top guy. Here's the reality. You only have to do the 4 things I talked about. You have to have the look. Plain and simple, you can't be the best in the world if you don't look like the best in the world. And a lot of AEW guys lack this number 1 stat, right? You have to have charisma. You have to be able to make people feel a certain kind of way. Truth is, guys like Will Ospreay, they don't entice that on a global level. They can get the IWC talking, but they can't keep the attention of the casual wrestling fan. You have to have in-ring ability. This is where AEW has an abundance, but this is just one of 4 things you need to be the best in the world. And this is the part that the IWC fucks up all the time. It's not just how many moves you do, but it's how effective those moves are and how memorable those moves are. So when Logan does things like jump off of the top ropes onto a table, it's how memorable those moves are. And then you have to have the it factor, and you can't explain it. There's just certain guys, Braun Breaker, MJF, Logan Paul, John Cena. They just have an it factor that when you see them, they're a pro wrestler. And I've always said, to get over, You have to do one of these four things extremely well. To be one of the best in the world, you have to excel in every one of these categories. And when you talk about Logan Paul, he has the look. He's bigger than most professional wrestlers. He's in better physical shape than most of the AEW roster. He has more charisma than most of the AEW roster. He's better on a microphone than almost everybody else in professional wrestling, not named Seth Rollins, CM Punk, or MJF. Don't argue me on that. That's the truth. Logan knows how to work the crowd. When you do a podcast like he does and you've spent your whole life being the bad guy comes natural. And don't tell me it's the booking. It's the way he's booked. They protect him in the matches. All right, then start structuring all matches like that, because whatever they're doing with Logan Paul is extremely effective. So you can talk shit on all the things he does outside the ring. Maybe he's a super unlikable person outside the ring, but to me, that just adds to the persona of who Logan Paul is. That adds to the heel. The moment that he decided it was okay to be a heel in professional wrestling is the minute he shot up into that top three conversation. And here's the kicker, right? Here's the thing that's not going to get talked about. That big drone shot. That big drone elbow off of the top rope. You know whose idea that was? That wasn't WWE. That wasn't some booking manager in the back. That wasn't a producer. That was Logan Paul. That was Logan Paul's idea. So not only can he effectively wrestle in the ring, not only can he talk to the crowd, but he also has the brain for this. He also has the creative. It's built in. He's kicking ideas to Triple H on a constant basis. That's what top guys do, guys. That's what top guys do. Logan Paul had the idea to do a drone shot, not WWE, not some producer. Logan Paul is a marketing genius. So when you talk about those four categories, the four categories that we talked about, right? The look, he's got the look. The charisma, he's got that in abundance. The in-ring ability, 8 matches in, he has it. What do you think he's going to look like 20 matches in if he really decides to continue doing this? And he has the it factor. Let me know your thoughts on today's episode in the comments. And while you're there, make sure to join the Casual Wrestling Club. Link is in the description of the video. Thank you guys, as always, for hanging out. I am Nerdy D. You guys are the Casual Wrestling faction, and we will talk more pro wrestling tomorrow.